Good evening, everybody. Hi. Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope everyone's doing well. Happy Monday, Miss Deborah. I hope the weekend was nice to you. Can you guys hear the music playing well enough? I'll have it playing a little bit for a few minutes while we wait for everybody to log on and join us. Herbert, Barb, hello everyone. Okay, good. The music is good. I'm glad. Okay. Well, for anybody who is just logging on, welcome and hello. In case you don't know what you have found on TikTok, we are doing a book reading. Oh, Dawn, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you like my content. So you have stumbled onto a book reading. And this is the final book in a 5-book series by Amelia Atwater Rhodes. And we are actually almost done with this book, so there's like that much left. So if you've missed any of the previous readings, or if you just want to go back and just listen to them again because you just love the sound of my voice, you can go on to my bio, and you can go to the link for my YouTube channel, and you can actually just watch them all in sequential order. I've got them listed, all of the book titles and in their order. And you can actually also go back and listen to the other books unrelated to the series that we've already read through. So for any of you guys who are seeing this on my YouTube channel, hello, good evening, happy Monday. Well, it'll probably be Tuesday by the time you guys see this, maybe even Wednesday, but hi. Thank you for joining. What time is it? 8 o'clock? Okay, we got a few minutes. So for anyone who has not been with us for the duration of this read, I would catch you up on stuff, but there is just so much that is in this series. I would just encourage you to just maybe hop on to Amazon or something, or just Google like a quick read of what the series is about to kind of give you an idea of what, you know, you would be listening to. But I think, I don't know guys, I think we've got 2 reads. I think tonight and next Monday will be it for this book series. Yeah, because I don't want to overdo it. But, so we've probably got two more reads left of this book. And then at the end of February, we'll be starting a brand new book series. I haven't made a decision officially yet of what we'll be reading. I mean, it'll still be fiction. More chances than not, it'll be fiction. But there's one book in particular that I really want to read to you guys, and like so many other books in my house, I think my house ate my book, so I don't want to give it away just yet. I want to see if I can find the book this week, and if I can find it, I'll make the announcement next week as to what the book is. But I really want to read that one. It's one of my favorite books. It's technically, no, not historical fiction. What am I looking for? Biblical fiction. That's what it is. I have a ton of historical fiction books here at the house, and just, you know, fantasy fiction, but it's a biblical fiction book. And you missed my skits? Well, I haven't gone anywhere. You know where to find me. If you're one of my followers, you know where to find me. Depending on how long it's been since you've seen me, I've got a lot of videos for you to catch up on. Oh, speaking of catching up on stuff, In case any of you guys have not seen my announcement that I posted on here, I think yesterday, I am writing a book. I'm taking the plunge, I'm doing it, I'm writing a book, and it's actually going to be based on all of my Nikki content. It's going to be based on all of those skits. So I've been plugging away for the last like 2 weeks trying to get like things written down in a rough draft format, because by the summertime, at least by May, I would like to have enough content put together that I can maybe start getting my feelers out for an editor to see if anyone's interested in trying to give me some guidance and edit my book. So if anything, it'll be probably small like these. So I'll do maybe 3 perhaps, depending on how much content I have by the end of this year. But if you're just getting back into reading, or if you have never really been an avid reader, thank you, Joanne. Thank you so much. This kind of series, because these books are so small, there's such an easy way to get back into reading. And I mean, there's a made-up language in here, so that can be a little tricky to try and read through, but ultimately it doesn't really, if you can't get the hang of it, it doesn't really take away from the meat of the story as it is. So I highly encourage you guys, if you want to get back into reading, or if you want to try and see if you even like reading, find a series like this where you like, because look, it's not even, it's like the width of my finger. Like, these books are so easy to read, and other books like this, series like this that are just easy reads, you just pick them up, casual reads, that is kind of how I'm hoping my book will be. It's going to be just a series of short stories, of course, and they're going to be skinny. Like, the books are going to be skinny like this one. But also, before my book will even hope to ever come out, the original content creator who inspired my content has already written a book about their content. And you actually can, it's available for pre-order on Amazon right now. You can get it through, there's a link through the UK and here in the US. If you go into my like videos that I've posted, I'm wearing like a red and blue robe, and I've got like the big like smiley face filter on. That's the book announcement for the other content creator. Her name is Gladys. The character's name is Gladys. The book is about her, and I have already pre-ordered my copy, and I cannot wait to read it. I'm so excited. But with that being said, that ramble is now officially over. It's after 8. Let's go ahead and get started with this reading, since that's why you guys are here. So for anyone who's following along, we are on chapter 15, which is page 110. Taking a quick sip of my water here. All right. Chapter 15. I looked back from the doorway, my heart pounding. Nisias looked so peaceful, lying there, innocent. What I was about to do to him. Suddenly he wasn't peaceful, but once again screaming, fighting. "How can you do this to me?" he shrieked at the falcon who was holding Zenle Cobriana. "All your high ideals, all your dreams, you are no better than your empress." Darian looked away sadly as she cradled the cobra child. All she said was, "This cannot be allowed to happen again." I shuddered. Nisias would probably never forgive me for what I was about to do, but I would never forgive myself if I didn't do it. I saddled Najat and pounded into the woods with the word traitor echoing in my head. At the edges of Obsidian Land, I saw once again the child I had hoped I could banish. Kayi twirled among the trees, chasing fireflies in the night air, while her father watched her fondly with pale green eyes. Vere Obsidian loved his daughter more than life itself, and that showed on every inch of his face. The white viper greeted me when I reached the camp, though he appeared distracted. "Hi, what brings you here so early in the day?" Reasoning with Vere might get him to change his plans, but even if he backed out of his engagement to the Wyvern Princess, it did not mean she would change her mind. "I came to offer my congratulations," I said instead. "I hear you are going to be king." He looked away from me toward the camp. "Apparently," he said. "That's a bold move for a man from a tribe that has sworn neither to lead nor to follow." He nodded. "It is more than I would want, but Eliza's offer was—" He sighed. "This whole situation is appalling." "Then why did you agree to it?" "Eliza offered a pardon for all my people, without the conditions her ancestors tried to impose. They do not need to return to Serpent land or accept the Dient as king. She swore that the royal house would acknowledge the autonomy of the Neserarush, as Maeve's coven once did, and that the Obsidian Guild would be allowed to live as it wished, provided we break no Serpent laws." "Do you love her?" I asked. As a rule, Serpent didn't believe in political marriage. Vere shrugged. "I love my people." "What of Betia?" He winced. I don't think I will ever be able to clear from my mind the expression on that woman's face when Nisias landed in front of Eliza. She knew what it meant before he said a word. I'd learned enough. Now I had other visits to make. "I will see you this evening, then." This evening. My next visit was to the marketplace. It was still early, but I found Salokin speaking to Arquite as she set out her wares for the day. They did not seem surprised to see me, and the way Arquite dropped everything to give me her undivided attention the moment I approached told me where her loyalties lie. The two serpents followed me, without question, to a less crowded area of the market. "Salokin, you implied once that you might support me if I chose to assert my right as Ange Cobriana's only child," I said, too softly for my voice to carry beyond these two. If that is true, I need your vow on it." His eyes widened as if I had asked him to sign his name in blood. To a falcon, a spoken vow was much the same thing, though I did not think he knew that. "I was loyal to your father," he answered firmly. "You are his child, his only heir. If you choose to step forward as Arami, then I swear I will be loyal to you." Arquite put a hand on Salokin's arm to steady herself. She declared, "I served as a soldier beneath your father before his death. I followed him to the keep on the day he—" Her voice broke, but her fiery gaze remained on mine as she said, "I would have died in his place if I could have, and I would do the same for his heir. I swear it." "I understand there are others." "Many others," Salokin answered immediately. "When Eliza returns to Wyvern's court to take the throne, I expect every serpent loyal to me to be in the crowd, at the front. Arquite, if there are other trained soldiers in the group, I would appreciate their assistance. They are not to touch the princess. Make that very clear. They are simply to be there, in case I need them." "Yes, milady." I started to turn, then hesitated, looking back. "And whoever is responsible for this turn of events," I added, keeping all judgment clear from my voice, "I want them present. They should receive some recognition." Salokin and Arquite both nodded, deeply enough that they almost bowed. I did not know yet if they had started the rumors that had brought about Salem's demise, or just repeated them. Either way, I needed Salokin and Arquite for a few hours more. It would be best to let them think I meant to reward them until I was ready to act. I returned then to the candle shop on the northern hills, where I found Opal, Gren, Maya, and Spark in heated conversation. The instant I stepped into the room, the four falcons began to proclaim their innocence. "Hush!" I snapped. "Not one of you is stupid enough to have planned this against my will. I am not the Mercy, who would arrest you all for wanting it to be done even when you had no hand in it." They all calmed, but I could see the wariness on their faces. "You have all spoken of me as queen of this land, many times. Do you still wish it?" Maya was the first to react. She knelt beside me, and I felt a chill go down my spine. I had seen others grovel this way before the Empress, but I was no royal falcon, only a mongrel, desperate to pretend. "Take the throne, and I will follow you," she swore. One last visit. Back in the cool shadows of the woods, I closed my eyes and reached for my mother. "Darian?" "Yes?" There were many discussions we could have had in that moment. I sighed. "Take care of Nisias for me. I suspect he will come to you soon." "Hi, what are you doing?" Darian demanded. "Fulfilling all your expectations," I answered bitterly. I meant to leave it at that, but couldn't help myself from asking, "How could you do this to me, to the world you claim to want to protect? How could you be so blind to convince Nisias all is well and allow this horror?" "I've told you, my Sakri are—" "What of my Empress?" I asked. "Surely she can see far more than a mongrel can. She must know what will happen if Eliza takes the throne." I felt my mother shake her head on the distant Anmeek island, as she stared out her window and over the white city. "Sharza has more power than you and I combined, but the void frightens her. She fears drowning in its illusions, so she holds back." The idea that Sharza might have such a powerful weakness was deeply unsettling. If that's the case, then you're both blind here. Eliza listens to Nisias's counsel, and Nisias would listen to you. You could stop this with a few words to him if you would just trust me. "I can't." I felt her struggle to choose wording that would be kind. She settled on, "You are a falcon despite your father's blood, and I have no way of knowing where your loyalties lie, but I know that they are not with me." Sometimes I myself wasn't sure. Nisias's eyes opened as I returned to his room, my arms laden with a package of freshly baked pastries that Arquette had given to me on my way back here. "Good morning," Nisias said. "Morning." I went to his side, my eyes feasting on the lines of his face, his golden lashes, high cheekbones, soft lips, and fair skin. "You looked so peaceful I didn't want to wake you." He smiled, but I knew that he was wary. He had every right to be. I kissed him, for perhaps the last time. "I brought breakfast," I said. "We'll need it. I imagine it is going to be a very long day." Chapter 16. Oh, please don't fall. Eliza wore plum violet, the serpient color of mourning, to her coronation. Officially, the color was in honor of her cousin, but Eliza had so much more than that to mourn, and everyone in the audience knew it. Vere Obsidian was in such a deep shade of blue that it was almost black. I wondered how Eliza felt about her would-be mates making an effort to avoid the Cobriana royal color, even though the difference in tone was discreet. His white blonde hair had been braided in back, but was in no way hidden. Both Vere and Eliza appeared grave as he helped her onto the dais. Even once Eliza looked out over the crowd, the marketplace took a long time to hush, as Serpient continued to express their emotions, which ranged from relief at Eliza's return to fury. Even serpents who supported Eliza in general were disturbed by this turn of events. Nisias at the foot of the dais swept the crowd with cool eyes. Only those who knew him well might have recognized how nervous he was. He was not the only one. Eliza's parents appeared drawn and worn. For 20 years they had dreamed of the day their daughter would take the throne, but this was not the way any parent would have wished that dream to come true. Sive stood at the far edge of the crowd, shunned by almost everyone but her avian guards. Only a lone serpent had elected to stay by her side. Though she held herself straight, her eyes were swollen from crying. Sorry, that was my brother-in-law's dog. Rosalind was not present. In fact, most of the dancers from the nest were missing. They had attended the coronation of one of their own, but they had chosen to stay by that fallen king's side rather than watch this farce. Their absence pleased me. as it meant my loyalists made up more of the crowd. How many? I wondered. There was only one way to find out. I stepped forward. Serpents stepped aside, some of them with confusion on their faces, but many with respectful nods as I moved through the crowd. I kept my face neutral as I approached the bottom of the dais. Oliza Charde Cobriana. Oliza jumped as I called to her. Nisias, who was nearly next to me now, frowned and said my name. Hi? I boosted myself smoothly onto the dais. Oliza, a word with you. Hi. Now is hardly the time, the wyvern replied. Now is the only time. Hi, what do you think you are doing? Nisias asked. I spoke clearly, so my voice would be heard by the entire crowd. My father was the eldest of his generation, older brother to both Zane and Irene Cobriana. I recognized you as Arami, Oliza, because you held that place before my return, but then you gave up that title of your own free will. I recognized Salem because our people respected and followed him, and I wish he could still hold the throne, though from what I can tell of his injuries, he will not recover. The words hung in the air. I knew that every eye and every ear was focused on us at this moment. I hope, Milady Wyvern, that you will gracefully step aside and not attempt to force your way into a position you willingly abandoned. This is absurd, Zane said, objecting. A pair of my followers, both of whom appeared to be soldiers, stepped between the cobra and the stage. Let her speak, one of them said. Oliza's voice was frosty when she said, I stepped down because I knew I could not hold both thrones if I wanted to avoid another war. I never abandoned my people when they needed me, and I will not do so now. They do not need you now either. More softly, praying Oliza would hear the truth in my words, I added, and we both know what you really feared would happen if you took the throne. Why was I the only one who could see Anamirak's fire destroying us all? Why was I the only one who could hear the screams as the falcons slaughtered the survivors, leaving only children that the royal house could raise as it wished? Hi, this is madness, Oliza said. Arquette had come to the front and now pointed out, it is not mad if it's true. She is rightfully Arami. Oliza is the rightful Arami, someone else shouted. By now, Nisias had climbed onto the stage. He stepped between Oliza and me, the pain of betrayal in his eyes. No. The word was accompanied by angry magic that shuddered through me like the rumble of thunder. Hi, I will not allow you to... I pulled back with a hiss. Nisias Silvermead, if I am a cobra, then I am not a subject of the royal house of Onmeek. You have told me this many times. That means you are not my prince. I wanted to recall the words the instant I shouted them. Wanted to say, it's not true. Please, I meant nothing by it. Instead, I continued. Or is this the wish of that house? You say you turned down the falcon throne to stand behind Oliza, Nisias of Onmeek. Are you here as a guard or a puppeteer? Nisias was royal falcon-born, but I had been mercy-raised. He did not have the experience to turn these allusions around as I spoke quickly, sowing distrust among all the Serpian around us. You know that isn't true. I am loyal to Oliza? I asked with obvious cynicism. How can you claim to be loyal to the Wyvern Princess and then ask her to betray the sacred vow she swore to her true mate? How can you say you are loyal to Wyvern's court, then participate in this sham ceremony in an attempt to protect the throne from... What? Its rightful heir? I challenged him. I am not a usurper, Nisias. I am Anjay Cobriana's daughter, and I will not abandon the responsibility of his legacy. Nisias, step aside. Oliza's soft voice sent Nisias away, and I was left looking at the wyvern. Oliza, please, do not force this confrontation further, I implored. The crowd around us was beginning to get ugly. My followers were holding back Oliza's family and friends, including Zane Cobriana, but I knew that my loyalists would feel the need to protect me once her father reached the dais. Neither of us wants blood to be spilled here today. I will not allow a falcon to usurp the Serpian throne." I then let myself do something I had never done. I recoiled and shifted into my serpent half-form. I had always thought of my cobra fangs and scales as dirty, but when I looked upon Eliza with garnet eyes and hissed, the action felt as natural as a falcon's cry once had. "Falcon?" I asked. "I have as much cobra blood as you do, Wyvern. My father would have been Dient had he not been slain by your mother's brother. Is your millennia-old prejudice against my mother's blood enough to deny me my rightful place?" "You have no rightful place here." Eliza was losing her temper and her poise as I twisted around her arguments. I spun away from her as one of the serpents broke free from the crowd and leapt onto the dais. Sensing the blade and who it was intended for before anyone else noticed it, I pushed Eliza aside. The blow, which had been meant for the wyvern, struck me in the side, piercing one of my lungs. "Stop!" My subjects pulled back as I shouted at them. I grabbed the wrist of the serpent who had just tried to end this debate with the death of my opponent and dragged him forward. "Eliza is my kin," I said, struggling for breath, "and she is my heir. I will not allow you or any other to harm her." 2 more serpents scrambled onto the dais. Before I could figure out if they were on my side or Eliza's, Nisias reacted for me. His magic lashed the would-be assassin, the other 2 serpents on the dais, and several others who had been trying to reach us. They all fell back, hissing in pain and anger, and I suppressed a sad smile. In Nisias' attempt to defend his queen, he had cemented her connection to the royal falcon house in the minds of many serpents. I collapsed to my knees and pulled the knife from my side. Coughing blood, I let my magic fill the wound. Falcons were harder to kill than serpents. Kneeling, my hands bloody from a wound that had been intended for Eliza, I looked up at the wyvern. I knew the arguments she could make, but either she could not find the words or she chose not to. Then, instead, Eliza took 1 step back, then another. "I will not let my pride drag us into a civil war here," she said, struggling to control her anger. "You are the only child of my father's eldest brother, and even though you have never claimed that parentage before, the Cobriana blood still shows true." She looked away as her voice wavered. "I gave my people up once to protect them. I will not let you create the strife I was trying to avoid. As long as our people will support you, I will not challenge your claim to the Serpiant throne." She shifted before us all, something Eliza never willingly did. Her wyvern form soared into the skies, every movement betraying her fury and pain. Actually, you know what, guys? We may get through the rest of the book this evening. Chapter 17. The crowd beyond the dais watched with a mixture of shock, understanding, and, in the case of my followers, arrogance, as Eliza left. Some retreated slowly, horrified, but most remained, turning their gazes to me with wide eyes. Only 1 serpent still moved forward. Zane Cobriana stepped, unchallenged, onto the dais. His garnet eyes burned, and I wondered whether he would attempt to speak to me or murder me outright without care for the consequences. My defense came from an unexpected source. Vere Obsidian, who had stepped back from Eliza when I had ascended the dais, now moved protectively between me and the cobra. "Get out of the way," Zane snarled. "Do not give me orders, cobra," Vere replied coldly. "I am not your subject. You are not king to anyone right now. By your law, you lost that title when Salem took the throne. You have no more authority here than High does, and she, at least, has my respect." "That is a falcon. She has no right to this throne." I struggled to my feet. "Yes, I am half falcon, but your daughter is half hawk. If wyvern blood makes an Arami unfit to rule, then you had best search harder for your sister Irene, or find yourself a new Naga, for law forbids your having a barren queen when you have no suitable heirs." Do not quote Serpient law at me. I believe I need to, since you seem to have forgotten it, I said. You have no right to keep your brother's heir from this throne. The Cobriana were notorious for their temper, and as I saw the rage in Zane's eyes, I braced myself for a blow. Vere caught the cobra's wrist. If you strike her, I swear to every god in this world, I will destroy you. I think a charge of treason would do quite nicely. Zane's eyes widened. She isn't Dient yet. Until she declares her mate. Yes, I'm aware of the laws, Zane. I learned them as well as we waited for the day when you would name our Adelina your Naga. Instead, you broke my aunt's heart, and then you executed her. Now you would drag your own Eliza from her beloved mate and abuse your brother's daughter? And you wonder why the Obsidian Guild refuses to kneel to you. Zane glared. Who are you to speak as if you understand what went on? I am a subject of Anamirak, Vere retorted, and therefore free to speak my mind as I wish. I am a descendant of Maeve, a child of the Obsidian Guild, and therefore well-versed in Colbriana politics. Are you still courting my father, Vere, or are you courting me now? I remembered asking him. Now I relied on the answer he had given me. My mate, I declared. Or did you think it was only for politics that I would interrupt this ceremony? I spoke not for Zane, but for those in our audience who still might object to this coup. Serpents liked romance. The idea of my challenging Eliza for love would appeal to them. Vere looked surprised but did not protest. Instead, he wrapped an arm around my waist. Dient? I glimpsed a hawk out of the corner of my eye, but before I could react, a pale fist caught me under the jaw. Vere barely kept me on my feet as I stumbled backward, shocked, raising one hand to my bleeding lip. My followers came to my defense, gripping the arms of the woman I now recognized as Danica Chardet, Eliza's mother, the avian queen. Zane had been enough of a threat that no one had even thought to watch for his mate. Release her, I shouted to my guards, but they just looked at each other skeptically. She is Eliza's mother. She has every right to be upset, and even if she did not, I have not done all this only to begin the war again by harming the Tuuli Thea. At my glare, they reluctantly let go of the infuriated hawk, but this time they kept their attention on her. Zane went to his mate's side as she spoke to me. Throughout my childhood, I was taught that a serpent couldn't be trusted, she said through clenched teeth. Thousands of years of war were justified by that premise. Now my king, my pair bond, is a cobra. I love him. I trust him. I have learned that there is no evil inherent in serpient blood. The head of my guard, Kel Silvermead, she continued, is a falcon. She and her Alistair, and their son, Nisias, are among the most loyal subjects Wyvern's court could ever hope to have. So I know there is no innate flaw in falcons either. But you, Dient, you are nothing but a soulless, bloodless mongrel. What you have done today, it is better to be a bloodless, soulless mongrel, I replied cuttingly, than an emotionless hawk who can't step down off her superior throne to look at the truth. Eliza is your daughter, and I know you want to protect her, but this is not her place. Eliza is more than my daughter, the Tuuli Thea said. She is more than a princess. She is a symbol of a dream that took thousands of years to bring about, which you, raised on your island, can barely understand. When my daughter abdicated, she gave her crown to Sive and Salem, and her trust in them was enough to keep this land together. But now that's over. My people will leave Wyvern's court, no matter what Sive or I may say. Your betrayal will split this world in two. Better they leave in peace than stay and burn. At least this way they would still have their precious freedom. It would take time for the Serpient to find their equilibrium again, and in the meantime there would be fights both within the Serpient and between them and the Avians. But I had to believe that eventually the balance would return. Fate willing, they would never learn how close they had danced to a future in which the freedoms they worshipped were ripped away and replaced by lies, manipulations, and rewritten history from the Falcon Empire. Nisias stepped past me without a glance and touched Zane's shoulder respectfully. Sir, Milady Charday, I am worried I will not be able to keep the crowd back if the three of you stay here. I do not believe that most in the crowd would harm you, but we have already had one would-be assassin. Zane looked around with a heartbroken expression. Danica did not turn her golden fire eyes from mine. They both knew what Nisias was really saying. This battle was over. The Serpient people had not rejected me, and that meant that no matter how much they hated this turn of events, they had no right to eject me from this dais. I am your kin, and I love this world, I said. I sincerely meant every word. I will not betray it. I swear that to you both. Sir? Nisias said again, at the last moment, changing his address from the title this cobra no longer held. Lady Charday. Slowly, the royal pair withdrew from the dais, leaving me alone with Very Obsidian and 100 pairs of serpient eyes on us. Too softly for those beyond the dais to hear, Very whispered dryly, I never realized that you and I were so close. I have seen what happens if Oliza rules, I explained. I planned my next words carefully before I spoke. You asked me once what horrors I saw. Salem's death was only the beginning. I care for this world, and I am determined that it will not experience the bloodbath I can see so easily in its path. I have no desire to rule, but if I must, and I do believe that I must, then I want you beside me. It is the least I can do for you, and if you truly wish to honor my father and help his daughter, then it is the most you can do for me. Very's expression was one of sweet concern, but his words were cool. Aside from your lovely attempt at emotional blackmail, why would I wish to be your king, Falcon? Because you wanted to be king before, I answered. You accepted Oliza's suit. I can match the terms she offered you. I needed to block the path to every future in which the child Kayi could exist. Among the Serpient, lovers came and went, but a couple sworn as mates never strayed. Those vows were even more sacred among the Naserarush, and so the Obsidian Guild. If I could bind this man to me, I knew he would not visit Oliza's bed while I still lived. I feel like I am bartering for bread, not hearing a proposal. I can only offer what I have, I told him softly. I cannot swear undying love. You would know it was a lie. I know that this land has never done you favors, and you certainly owe the Cobriana nothing. But I need you. Wyvern's court needs you. He nodded very slowly. Very well then, Cobra. Let's dance this step. Just lead the way. I turned at long last to the enraptured crowd. I found myself shaking and had to lean against Very for support. My people were confused, frightened, utterly overwhelmed. Some of them had actively supported me, but most of them simply did not know what to do. I did not know how to comfort them, so I chose honesty. I love this world. I will not abandon her now that she needs me. If Salem wakes, I will willingly acknowledge him as my Dient. The rumors that led to his fall were false, as the avian queen-to-be herself has attested, and he is still the rightful king of this land. If Irene returns with another child, I will acknowledge that child as my heir. I will not allow the Cobriana line to diminish. I said this to address the question of what would happen to their royal line when it was mixed with the blood of falcons and white vipers. I said it also because unmixed magic was too strong in me. I did not know if I would ever be able to have a child, and I certainly did not wish to rule until the end of time, as the Falcon Royals seemed content to do. I stand before you and swear a solemn vow to do what I must to protect this land, my land, until that day. I have also sworn to honor the promises made by Oliza regarding the Obsidian Guild, which has been outcast from our society for too long. Wyvern's court is meant to be a place without old hatred. And so I wish to present to you my mate, Your Nog. I hesitated, not sure how to introduce the White Viper. Members of the Obsidian Guild guarded their names, never sharing them with anyone but with those to whom they were deeply connected. Vere Obsidian, he provided, loudly enough for the crowd to hear. More softly, he said to me, Make it worth it, Dient. It's done. And yet there was so much more to come. Chapter 18. Indeed, we are moving right along. We will finish tonight. We'll finish tonight. I need to speak to my people and explain to them what happened here, Vere said to me as we stepped down off the dais. 2 of my loyalists moved to flank us, guarding us from any of Eliza's or Zane's supporters, who might have taken offense to any, or all, of what had just occurred. I'm still not entirely sure what did happen, Vere admitted. I'm trusting you that there was a reason for this. I nodded. I assure you there was. I will try to explain when we have a few moments alone. For now, it would have to wait. Arquette and Salokin found their way to the front of the crowd and knelt before me. Arquette grasped my hand. Dient, The rest of her words were lost to me as I instead heard what she had said to Salokin 2 days before. No one will believe it, Salokin said. No one needs to believe it except Prentice, Arquette responded practically. Do you think that Raven will stop to think about... The vision faded, but I had heard enough. I withdrew my hand, taking a step back. Arquette, Salokin. Both serpents looked nervous when they heard my tone. You're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit regicide. In short, for treason. Salokin's blue eyes widened. Milady, but we did it for you, Arquette protested, and look where you are. It isn't treason to support the rightful heir to the throne. You murdered Salem Cobriana. We never touched him, Salokin cried. You were there. Prentice attacked him. I was also there in the market when you spread the rumors that sent Prentice after him. You might not have held the blade in your own hand, but you planned its use. No, Arquette shook her head. Milady, please, I beg your mercy. I did it only for you. My mercy? I echoed. Be grateful I have none. Serpient law says you will have a trial for this crime, and witnesses to speak on your behalf, if you can find any. It is more than I want to give you. I summoned one of my self-appointed guards, who was looking at Salokin and Arquette in horror. Arrest them. Bring them to the nest. Salem was not only a cobra but a dancer, and turning these 2 over to nest justice is the least I can do. Salokin begged, Please, High, don't do this. I shook my head. If you wish to redeem your honor, be honest with the dancers, I suggested. If you wish to die a coward as well as a traitor, beg me further. He went white and bowed his head before allowing my soldier to escort him to the nest. Milady, someone else to speak to you, another of my followers said to me. I turned, as if under water. I did not need to be warned of Nisias's approach. I could sense it. Vere, who had stood silently beside me as I had dealt with the traitors, now stepped back to give us some space. Please don't, I said softly. How convenient, Nisias observed, to be able to execute the weapons you used to win this throne. You know I would never have harmed Salem, I said. You may never forgive me for not allowing Eliza to return, but someday you will at least believe that I did not wish for this. He shook his head dismissively. Oh gods, my sweet Echo, Anmeek, I wish I could reach for you now to take me back into my numbness. I lifted my gaze to his blue one and fought to keep the tears from spilling. My Nisias, my light, you took me from the darkness. I whispered silently to Nisias and felt him listening briefly before he started to block me out again. You took me from my black tower and taught me to feel again. Don't look at me with that fury, that awful look of betrayal. I had no choice, I said aloud. No choice, of course. Nisias, please, you know as well as I do that why Eliza cannot rule. He shook his head again. I don't know anything anymore. Anything. I brought you here. I defended you. I fell asleep with you in my arms, and I thought... He cleared his throat. You slipped away while I slept. Well, you slipped away while I slept to usurp my queen's throne. Now you dare tell me that you had no choice? The anguish in his voice was even worse than the anger. I have to go, I whispered. Fury smoldered in his gaze, and his body was rigid with the effort it took to keep his voice level as he continued. Before you leave, I did not come here to criticize you. That isn't my place. I just came here to request that you release me from my obligations to Wyvern's court. Nisias, he ignored my plea. I do not feel it is appropriate for me to serve under the next Dient when I swore my loyalty to Eliza. I have been offered a position among the royal flight, effective once I leave. No, I wanted to say, I give no such permission. He would leave anyway, though. This was just a formality. Nothing I said would keep him here, after what I had done to him. Forgive me, my love, I called silently. The words fell upon deaf ears. Nisias did nothing more than frown, but the falcon shuddered at the Prince of Anmeek's obvious displeasure and turned to address Nisias's mate with a trembling voice. My lady. His downcast eyes were unable to conceal his terror. Please, forgive a foolish man his ill-conceived words. Do you apologize for my benefit, she asked, or for my prince's? Anmeek's magic would not let this falcon die, no matter how much she wished it would. The man looked at his Aonara and cringed. Araceli's heir was not in a forgiving mood. Nisias would join the royal flight for a short time, but it would not be long before he would become restless. He would go to Anmeek for valiant reasons, but the city would turn him into what he most hated, and it would be my fault. How long would it take him, I wondered, to change into the cold, jaded prince I kept seeing lately? How long would it take him to forget Eliza and me and pick this other woman as his lover? I could have saved him from that fate. I could have given him back Eliza, but the price, the destruction of Wyvern's court, was one I knew he would never have chosen to pay. So I damned him. Permission granted. Nisias nodded. Thank you. For a moment I thought he sounded regretful, but I did not know whether it was for leaving me or for saving me in the first place. It's done. Fateful words echoed in the beat of his wings as he fled in my pounding heartbeat. I'm sorry, Very whispered, but if what you have done is indeed for the best, he will someday realize that. First, though, he needs to calm down. I shook my head. I fear that by the time he calms down, he may be a very different man. Vere started to reach for me, then hesitated, his mind surely on the peregrine who occupied my heart. I took the White Viper's hand in mine, needing some kind of comfort, but feeling just as awkward about it. Had we been friends? I didn't even know if I could use that term. Now suddenly we had agreed to be mates. Even our reasons differed. I turned to lean against Vere, closing my eyes for a moment. I did not love him, but as Eliza had said, he was a kind man. Of the two of us, I was far more likely to be cruel. I opened my eyes again, prepared to suggest we move out of the marketplace, when suddenly I saw the child Kei only a few feet away from us. Her pale blue eyes were gazing up at Vere with fascination. Her golden hair was rumpled, as if she had been playing. I felt myself go cold. "What is it?" Vere whispered as I pulled away from him. Then he seemed to turn and lift the girl in his arms, spinning her about. Why? I had done everything I could do, everything. What assassin's knife was going to find me, to allow this girl to live? I could think of no other way. I would let her ashe come to pass. She was laughing, This girl with so much blood on her hands. I looked at the serpents who had surrounded me only moments before, and saw them all still and silent, their bodies glistening with the golden magic that would burn through this land like a storm. I threw my mind into the power, screaming, "Why?" Ekel, my love. Anmeek, my master. Anmirak, my bane. Please, I must know. There must be a way to stop this fire. Very caught my hands, trying to call me back to the real world. I felt his magic from Anmeek soothe mine, even as Anamirak's power shivered across my skin like fire, like Oliza's wyvern. Then the vision of the girl turned to me, and her eyes lit up as she said, "Mommy!" Oliza was not the only one whose magic was unbalanced, made dangerous by Anamirak's flames. No, fate could not be so cruel. But when had it ever been gentle? I shoved back from Vere, hard enough that only a serpent's reflexes kept him from falling. I felt the murmur in the crowd more than I had heard it. When I turned to run, people tried to stop me. Maya grabbed my arm, demanding an explanation, before Opal dragged her away. I pushed past my followers and my enemies in a panicked daze, fleeing toward the only place I could think of, Wyvern's Nest. Chapter 19. Only a few feet from the nest, I slammed into Velio as the wolf stepped in front of me. "Dient," he said, greeting me with a nod. "Frectane," I replied, gritting my teeth. I tried to step around him, and he blocked me. "What do you want?" "I wanted to offer my congratulations," he said. "And I suppose an apology. I misjudged you." "Fine, forgiven," I said. "Now move aside." "You look upset," he observed. "And in a hurry," I returned. "You did the right thing." The right thing. This, from Velio Frectane of all people. I want no comfort from a man who murdered his own father to ascend to the throne. I did it for the good of my pack, just as you have done this for the good of Wyvern's court. Oliza's weakness would have made her... If Wyvern's court had been ready for a Wyvern queen, Oliza Charde Cobriana, and her Naga, Betia Frectane, would have been the greatest monarchs this land had ever known, I snapped. They are both strong, just, and capable leaders. And they will prove it, I continued, as the vision came to me, when Betia succeeds you as Alpha of the Frectane. Velio scoffed. Your prophecies have become muddled again, High. There is no way I would allow that deviant back into our pack. I had seen in Sakri this wolf with his angry hands on Oliza's mate. I had seen him try to repeat the crime with the wyvern. I had stolen Oliza's throne from her only minutes earlier, but there was one gift I could give to her and Betia now, so I gave it. You want a prophecy, Velio? Sometimes, speaking of a vision can set into motion the very events one is trying to prevent, or in this case trying to cause. Betia and Oliza will become the much-beloved queens of the Frectane tribe. Their son, an orphaned wolf cub they will adopt within the next few years, will inherit the title later, and you will have a say in none of it, because you will be dead within the next 6 months, at the jaws of one of the wolves you call your allies. As I spoke the words, I felt fate shiver, the future realigning itself until the possible events I had seen became a near certainty. Paranoia would eat at Velio, and he would turn his fear on his allies until they would be forced to exterminate him. Enjoy your future, I said. Now, I have my own to attend to. I pushed forward, shoving the horrified wolf out of the way, and stumbled through the doorway of the dancer's nest. Inside, I was struck by the silence. Usually this place was full of graceful bodies and joyous sounds, but now all I heard was a single voice. Rosalind, Salem's mate, was singing a haunting, wordless melody. The others were silently dancing, their movements slow and careful. They were praying, offering their worship to the gods in exchange for the health of one of their own. The instant Rosalind noticed me, the mood shifted from sorrowful to angry. "You aren't welcome here, Falcon," she said. Her eyes were glazed with tears, and I could feel her pain like hail against my skin. "I don't care if you are, Dient. You have no right to be here." "I need to see Salem." "So you can finish what your supporters started?" Rosalind said accusingly. "So I can try to save him." Serpents jumped, as startled as I was by how desperate I sounded. The dancers were the only rulers of their nest. My own magic would stop me if I tried to force my way past them. Before Rosalind could respond, Aisha, the nest leader, placed a hand on her shoulder. "What can you do for him?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I have to—" "We can't trust her," Rosalind protested. "For all we know, it is her magic that is keeping him in this state." Aisha shook her head. "I can't know your intentions for certain," she said to me, "but I will let you pass. If Salem's guard disagrees, you will leave." "Thank you." I pushed past, shaking off Rosalind when she tried to stop me. Behind me, I heard Aisha trying to calm the fearful woman. I descended the stairs to the private rooms beneath the nest and found Salem's room easily. When I opened the door, Nisias looked up at me with disdain. "Oh, gods," I whispered. "Nisias, get out of here," he ordered. He knew that my vows to him were what kept me in this world, knew that my magic would tear at me to obey him. I fell to my knees to keep from turning around. "You have to listen to me," I begged, fear, need, and pain all too clear in my voice. "Oliza cannot take the throne. For her to do so would be disaster. You haven't seen— Dear Anmeek, help me speak true and clearly," I prayed. "You haven't seen the visions I've been haunted by. You haven't seen Oliza murdered by her own child. You haven't seen Wyvern's court burned to ash by Anamirak's fire, or by the falcons when they come—" My voice trembled. "I heard you scream too, Nisias. Please believe me. I would do everything in my power to keep you from that pain. I know you fear that Sakri can mislead, but not these." I whispered. "I have never seen visions this strong, this sure. I've tried, and I can't keep this land from burning." He crossed the room as if he couldn't help himself, and lifted me to my feet. Even if he hated me, Nisias wasn't the type of man who could stand by and let a woman grovel. His hands did not linger on mine. Coldly, he said, "So you set yourself up as queen of a land you never wanted. Then why are you here?" "Because I can't rule either," I whispered. I looked at Salem. "I swear to you, Nisias, I have never betrayed you. I swear it by blood, by fire, by flesh, by steel, by Ekel and by Anmeek, and by all that is and never will be. I swear I have never lied to you, and I have never betrayed you. I breathe this scorched air for you. Now please believe me. In every vision I see, this land falls. In every future I look to, I see you screaming. Salem Cobriana must take the throne, or our world burns." "Ours?" "You made your world mine," I said. "When you pulled me from Ekel, you gave me this land. At first I hated you for that. Now, I don't want this land to become the falcon crystal I see whenever I turn around. Let me try to help Salem." "You couldn't help him before," he argued. "How can you help him now?" "I'll dive deeper. I don't know. Maybe I can't do anything, but I need to try again. It's all I can do." He stepped to the side, letting me past. When I moved toward the silent cobra, Nisias touched my arm. "I'll try to hold you, to keep you from going too far." I shook my head. "Don't pull me back. His life means more than mine." Presuming there was any life left to save. Oh, Miss Gladys, if you're here, hello. I'm glad you liked the live. Thank you for joining in case you're still here. Chapter 20. Oh, gods, help me. Diving into Salem's body again hurt. He wanted to die, but the magic I had wrapped into him previously kept him on this side of existence. His heart wanted to stop, but my power kept it beating. His spirit was curled somewhere in the darkness, screaming in pain as it struggled to flee its corpse. Fear and agony ripped through me as his flesh prayed for release. Had Salem been anyone else, I would have given him a gentle death, faced with such pleas. I was tempted to do so even now, but there was too much at stake. This world needs you, I cried. Interesting. Okay. Oh, God, hello. Hi, Gladys. Sorry. Come on, computer. No. Don't you dare die on me. Don't you do it. No. Daggone it. Give me a second, guys. Ugh. I did it again. Oh well, it's fine. This world needs you, I cried, begging him to return. But how could he return when his body wouldn't take him? It wasn't right. Stripped of its magic, it had no life, no place for a heart and a mind and a soul. It yearned for Brish's embrace, after which there would be only silence and peace. For him, for us, there would be only pain. Come to me, I commanded, straining with every ounce of my own magic. Come to me. I tried to wrap the words around him, but felt him slipping away. I cursed the Amhaj poison. I slid my power over the ruined edges of his magic, trying to make him whole again. But Anmeek can only destroy, and I had never had control over the hint of Anamirak in my blood. I tried to soothe Salem's pain and coax his terrified spirit back into his body, promising anything if he would return to this land. I felt him starting to fall into his final rest instead of rising. I drew back and felt him shriek. Salem could not survive without magic. Wyvern's court could not survive without Salem. And Wyvern's court needed to survive. Therefore, Salem's body needed magic. Suddenly, I felt calm. Ha! Back on. I had tried being gentle, coaxing, and soothing, and begging in much the same way that Ekel had whispered to me for years. Come to me, and I will let you rest, the void called. Come to me, and I will take care of you. I will comfort you, and you will be at peace. 1 second, guys. There we go. Yeah? Good. Okay. But Anamirak's power wasn't rooted in peace, gentleness, and quiet entreaties. A cobra's magic, my father's magic, was what burned in me every moment of my life. It was fire and chaos. It was freedom, savage and natural, beyond civilization and law. And it was desperation. I slammed power into the cobra now, drowning his body in all the energy I had at my disposal. I held back nothing, bearing every part of myself as I forced his flesh and soul to do as I willed. Desperation was all I had left. Finally, I felt something in him react to the assault, drawn by the flicker of my father's magic. I had never been able to control Anamirak's power, but now I used it as a lure, enticing Salem not with promises of rest. Serpents didn't rest, but with heat. Now I have you. I entwined myself around and through every particle of his being, using Anamirak to hold him close and Anmeek to slice through the bonds between flesh and magic. I severed the rotten, tattered remains of magic left by the Amhaj poison, and felt Salem instinctively clutch at the familiar, healthy magic in my blood. One more cut, and I screamed as I felt the fabric of my reality rip. I struggled not to flee from the ice storm that struck me as my power slid away from me, seeking a more comfortable home. Cold. So cold. Once I had called Echo cold, but that had been a blessed numbness compared to this. Back on the ice, I felt it cut into my hands and my knees as it began to shatter, as I fell into the darkness, choking on the frozen black water. Down, someone said to me, a voice that sounded so familiar, so comforting. Dive, now. The beasts that used to dwell beneath the ice, forever drawn toward Anamirak's warmth, ignored me. As I sank into the void, images of the past fluttered before me. I walked through the White City as a child and spoke to spirits others couldn't see. Oh, how the world shone so brilliantly! The voices of the Mercy who had raised me faded as I listened to the songs the city wove. I could hear the colors of the sea and taste the moonlight, and feel the shifting strands of fate all around me. When might I be able to see the Empress? The cobra. He had no fear at all. The Wanjay had been carried across the ocean by pure diamond falcons, who could as easily have dropped him into the sea. He had held his head high from the instant he had set foot on the White Island, a place no Ki-Shara had ever stood before. When she decides you are worth speaking to, Darien replied. How am I to convince her of my worth if you never let me so much as walk in the city? My lady? Let him see our land, Sharza whispered through Darien's mind. Give him beauty. There will be none in the world to which he must return. I have always loved you, Darien. Years later, and still Sharza and my mother argued. Always favored you, always bent on Meek's rigid laws for you, though Echo shrieks at me every time those laws are broken. I could not let a mongrel be trained in this land. I would never have survived if I had tried. But have you no faith at all that I might have worked toward this, Henache? My mother turned her back on her empress, though she could not close her ears to Sharza's words or close her heart to her own hope. If I had let you care for your daughter, if I had not sent Kel to bring you to me and thus forced her into exile, if I had not twisted fate as I willed with each step of the way, this Nisaias would never have been born. Your daughter would never have arisen from the darkness. No, I interrupted them now. Sharza was not surprised that I had been present and listening. It is little enough, she pointed out, compared to your machinations to save Wyvern's court. Why does it seem so impossible that I might work to save one child, the only child of my favored companion? If you dared walk the line between Mehe and Echo, where fate is woven. But you do not. You fear it. You have feared it since the day you saw the first of your followers slide into Echo. Araceli's terror led her to create the avian people. Yours led you to write the laws of this land, to bind you to it so Echo could not take you. Enough! I had spoken without thinking, as if in a trance, but Sharza's command snapped me back from it. As you wish, my lady, I whispered. Echo Ga, illusion, all of it. I am sorry to distress you, I said. I remembered the terror that had gripped me the day Nisaias had first invaded my private illusion. His soul had stained that still and silent realm forever. Sharza had no other world, no other place, and no one to call her from this white realm. I did. Hai, where are you, Hai? I could go back to Nisaias. I paused, wondering. Memories of the past and the present poured through me, but I knew I could go back to him. Hai, listen to my voice. So I did. It was simple. The water was cold and deep and dark, but I found its center, and there I was. Chapter 21. I opened my eyes, though it did me little good. I thought I was still in the private room beneath the dancer's nest, but the lamps had burned out long before, leaving no light to see by. What I did know was that I was once again in Nisias's arms. I felt him stir, waking at the same time that I did. "What happens if there comes a day when I'm not here to save you?" he asked me. "Then I'll find my way back on my own." I struggled to gather my thoughts, remembering the last scene with Sharza. Had I really argued with the White Lady of Anmeek? Or had that been another vision of another future? What possible future could I have in which I would so brazenly challenge my Empress? My head began to pound as I remembered what we had been doing here. Salem. I pulled away from Nisias and closed my eyes for a moment, trying to focus past the pain at my temples. The cobra wasn't here. I would have been able to sense him even with my unfocused magic. "He's gone," Nisias said, coming to the same conclusion. My limbs ached as I pushed myself to my feet, swaying before Nisias stood beside me and steadied me. Together we groped our way through the darkness, toward the doorway and up the stairs, until we blinked at the sudden light and noise of the dancer's nest. Before my eyes had a chance to adjust to the brightness from the central fire, Rosalind intercepted us, her posture guarded as she looked from me to Nisias. "Salem's awake," I said. I could tell just by looking at the dancer before me. She was wearing a simple outfit made of 2 carefully wrapped and tied malos, one deep emerald in color and one black with green stitching. At her temple was a symbol meaning victory. It was not an outfit for mourning. "He is," she replied. Other dancers had drifted toward us, though they left Rosalind plenty of space. "Is he well?" I remembered a jumble of sensations and panicked thoughts. I had no idea what I had done, in my desperation to make the cobra wake, or what consequences might be. She hesitated, frowning. Nisias understood before I did. "Hai isn't your enemy," he told Rosalind. "Salem was dying, if he entirely through Hai's efforts. She risked more than you can possibly imagine to go after him." Rosalind cringed, looking away and then immediately back at me. "I'm sorry. With all that happened, I don't understand any of it." From the moment that Eliza announced that she was going to abdicate, she shook her head, making her long auburn hair ripple. "No, it started long before then. It had started the day the young serpient Arami, Zane Cobriana, and the avian heir to the Tuli Thea, Danica Charday, first sat together in a room in the Mistari homelands and decided that they would find a way to bring peace, no matter the cost. Rosalind struggled to compose herself. "You were both unconscious for several days. We didn't know if you had fought, if you were responsible for Salem's recovery, or if you were our enemies. No one knew what to do. We spoke to your mother, Nisias, and she said there was probably nothing we could do, so we left you undisturbed. I am very glad that you are awake now." "As am I," I said. "Where can we find Salem?" "I will bring you to him," Rosalind offered. We found Salem in the market, making the rounds of the merchants there. "We have been struggling to show solidarity with the avians," Rosalind explained as we approached the restored Dient. "Zane and Danica have been around to help as well, but it has really been Sive who has done the most." I wondered if Rosalind had any doubts about Salem's relationship with the hawk, but I pushed the thoughts away as she embraced her mate. "Hai and Nisias are awake," she said unnecessarily. Salem took a moment to assess the situation before saying, "I've heard many different theories on what happened. Do I have you to thank for my recovery, Hai?" Wyvern's court needed its Dient. His voice hardened somewhat. "I understand you briefly assumed that position in my absence." "I had no intention of harming Eliza, nor did I desire to usurp any throne," I said frankly. "Wyvern's court is my home. I did what I could to try to protect it." Slowly the cobra nodded. "Eliza tried to help calm people after you fell ill, but she was even less trusted than I was. She wasn't welcome in Wyvern's court." I winced. "I'm sorry I caused that hardship. I will make certain to clarify what happened, quickly." Our conversation had drawn the attention of everyone in the market. Many of the people who watched us were my allies. As odd as it felt to consider this cobra kin, it felt almost right when I let out a long breath and went down on one knee before Salem. "Hi, this isn't necessary," he protested. "Yes, it is," I said. "I was not behind the attempt to assassinate you, but I was the motive for it. If you were Schmanmeek, you would have had me killed." "I'm no falcon," he whispered. "I have allies in your kingdom, Dient." "So do I. But I wouldn't if I went about executing everyone who could possibly be a threat. You're innocent, Hai. You're more than innocent. You saved my life. Please, cousin, stand up." It was the first time he had ever acknowledged any relationship between us. I didn't know how to reply. He took my hands as I stood. "Wyvern's court has gone through a lot. Your help, and the help of your allies, would be greatly appreciated," Salem admitted. "When I stepped out of the dancer's nest without you beside me, even people who had protested your taking the crown were horrified. There was no way to convince them that we had not harmed you. Hopefully you will be able to calm them, now that you are awake." "Have Salokin and Arquette come to trial?" I asked. "They both confessed," he said. "Out of loyalty to you," they said. "And Prentice?" "I asked that he be returned to the Avians for trial. He was convicted of treason, grounded, and exiled." Salem shook his head and moved on. "Those trials were the easiest part of the last few days. Most of our hours have been devoted to keeping people from rioting. If a few of your followers, the Candlemaker and a handful of others, had not stepped forward to speak to your loyalists, I do not think we would have been able to keep control at all." "Gren?" Nisias asked. He had been so quiet behind me all this time that his voice startled me. Salem nodded. "Maya was actually the one who spoke to me first. She had a few questions." "You know who she is, then?" I asked. "We spoke at length," he answered discreetly. "I don't know that I can do anything for her. I don't dare risk inciting Anmeek's wrath, but at some point I would appreciate your counsel on the subject. Maya, Gren, Opal, and Spark worked to keep Wyvern's court from falling apart while you were gone. I don't want to ignore them now." I admitted, if I had not spoken to them, it is quite possible that all 4 of them would have participated in the plot to have you killed. On Anmeek, they would all be guilty of treason. And in Wyvern's court, they are responsible only for the crimes they have committed, and for their actions. I owe them thanks. His tone clearly said he considered the discussion over and further debate irrelevant, though I am glad you convinced them to be on my side, and not the other. I shrugged, still not used to his gratitude. From above came a shriek, a sound that both chilled me and made my heart race. Salem, Nisias, and I lifted our eyes to take in a quartet of falcons, 3 gyrfalcons and a peregrine. The group banked, circling once before it dove, and then the Empress Sharza's mercy landed before us. Oh, shit's about to go down, kids. Chapter 22. Nisias started to draw his blade, but hesitated as he beheld the gyrfalcon in the front. My mother. In Wyvern's court. I started to step forward, but Nisias stopped me with a hand on my shoulder. His eyes focused upon the peregrine beside Darien, and I heard the ring of steel as he drew his weapon defensively upon seeing Lillian, the woman who only a few months before had been his lover. The falcons fell back into formal postures, with their feet planted slightly apart and their right hands grasping their left wrists behind their backs, under the wings of their demi-forms. They did not acknowledge Nisias or me, focusing first on Salem. "Salem Cobriana," Darien said. "I understand you are Dient now." 2 of Salem's guards had materialized from the surrounding market, drawn by the falcon's cries, and stood beside him now as he said, "I am. And you are?" The gyrfalcon answered, "Shmanmik la Darien jes ois na oana sanyet manla leonekal manahith." And this is my working partner, Lillian J. Smailana Sanyet Manahea. Darian and Lillian, working together. Why were the Empress's elite messengers here? They had not come when Eliza had abdicated or when Salem had nearly been killed. Why now? I did not know whether to be overjoyed or frightened. The presence of the Empress's mercy in this land could not be good. Salem glanced at Nisias. "What is the White Lady's mercy doing in Wyvern's court?" Nisias asked. Only now did the two women turn to him. "You speak for the Dient?" "I speak for my king," Nisias replied boldly. Darian laughed a little, finally breaking from formality. "You, Nisias, are the only falcon on this earth who would dare call a cobra your king while standing before the finest of the Empress's mercy. And you, Darian," Nisias said, "are the only falcon on this earth who would be forgiven for treason as many times as you have been." She gave a little bow. "I am as loyal to my Empress as I should be. Now, to answer your question." Her eyes, as they lifted to mine, were liquid silver. The Empress felt a falcon wake. Nisias argued. "Hai has been awake for months. Why come now?" This time Lillian laughed, a sound that made Nisias tense. Her voice was soft and musical, but cold as she spoke to the man who could have been her prince in another world. "You misunderstand," she said. "It did not matter to the Empress when a mongrel dancer opened her eyes. She was perhaps glad of it, because she favored the cobra child, but that was all, and it did not trouble her when again your High fell and reawakened several days ago, save that she felt the harm done to royal blood when you, Nisias, tried to save her." "What interests Oana Lasharza," Lillian continued, "is the shift in the magic she felt a day ago, a shift that felt like the birth of a pure-blood falcon." "Then it isn't mine you felt," I said bitterly, starting to turn away. My mother had still not even acknowledged her relationship to me, and I had no desire to speak with the woman who had once been Nisias's lover. "Isn't it?" Darian whispered. "Hai. Shman mik lahai raola." She called me a falcon and her daughter, and the words made me hesitate. "You spin Sakri stronger than most of the mercy. Mine walk as simply as breathing and have survived Echo. Your features betray your cobra blood. The black hair and garnet eyes are not of Unmeek, but it is Unmeek's blood that holds you." "It is Unmeek's magic that has always cursed me," I returned. My mother shook her head. She looked at Salem and asked him, "Do you know what my daughter has done for you, Cobra?" When Salem did not respond, she asked Nisias, "Do you, Nisias?" Nisias turned toward me, but I knew he could not tell what it was he saw. Darian stepped forward and took my hand. "Your magic will never be as powerful as it was when it danced to Anamirak's flame, when it was sparked by that which you gave to your king." She looked back at Salem and almost angrily informed him, "Would you tear open your soul and give it to another, Cobra? That is what my daughter has done for you. Given to you that which her father gave to her, Anamirak's magic, the magic our poison destroyed in your blood." Salem's eyes widened. Instinctively, hearing my mother's words, I tried to call upon my own serpent form, and found nothing. I tried to draw across my skin the black scales, and found nothing, and screamed as my body tried to return to the broken, battered falcon that I had lost when I had fallen from the sky above the White City years before. Nisias caught me, sheathing his blade to hold me in his arms, his magic reaching out to soothe me. One last try. I reached this time for the magic that came from Unmeek. I felt it ripple through me, rubbing against Nisias's power like a cat seeking attention. He jumped, startled, and I pulled back. He glanced at Lillian, then back at me. "Darian is right. You feel like a pure-blood falcon now." Lillian smiled a little. "At least I made a lasting impression." "Like a knife blade," Nisias snapped. Then he dropped his gaze, shaking his head. "You were acting under orders." "Mostly," Lillian replied. "If it makes you feel better, my interest in you wasn't all feigned." "That doesn't really help, and it doesn't make me trust you now. Either of you," he added, turning to Darian. "No matter how you might have helped me in the past, you felt a pure-blood falcon awake. Sharza felt her wake. Now, what do you want with her?" With very few exceptions, a falcon was not allowed to live off the island. Nisias had been granted his pardon because he was Araceli's blood. His parents had sacrificed their magic and their falcon forms to stay here. What would Sharza ask of me? Will she let me stay? Did I want her to let me stay? To see the White City again, to walk through it, not as Quebec, but with magic as pure as all the rest. But I still did not have my demi-form, or my falcon form, and even if my magic was untainted now, the rest of my body was not. I was too dark. My father's cobra blood was still too evident. Still, naturally, Lillian replied, the Empress wants her own returned. No, I whispered. I had never thought I would say that word in this context, but it slipped off my lips. Wyvern's Court is my home now. I broke off, about to say, I have responsibilities here. I had worked so hard for the court that leaving would feel like abandoning it. If I disappeared now, without a word to the Serpient, my followers would forever distrust Salem. I needed to stay, at least a little longer. And then a little longer. I knew how this went. I knew the Cobriana. One did not easily name oneself one of them only to walk away. Even Eliza's abdication had been for her people. If I didn't walk away now, I would never be able to. You have... my mother asked when I did not finish the sentence. Never mind. Our orders are to bring you to the city, one of the other falcons said. Why are we even having this discussion? Lillian and my mother looked at each other, a meaningful glance that made Lillian sigh and say, Please, come with us willingly. May I have time to consider? I asked, though I did not know why. I had no choices to consider except whether to fight or obey. Yes, my mother said at the same time that one of the others said no. Darian, Lillian warned. Yes, Lillian? My mother's voice was falsely sweet. Hi, Lillian said. Please, come home with us. Your place is on Anmique. You have power there. Power here, I know, enough that it probably makes the current monarchy nervous. How long do you think they will tolerate you, trust you, knowing that you once had enough favor to usurp the throne of their beloved... Suddenly, I heard my mother's voice in my mind. I could tell by the way Nisias's gaze instantly turned to Darian that he heard her as well. Perhaps you would be happiest if you remained in Wyvern's Court, she said. If I knew that for certain, I would have insisted that Sharza leave you alone. I believe she would have let me have my way. She wants me by her more than she needs you on the island. But it must be your choice. I have been little enough a part of your life as it is. I should not be the one to decide what you do with it now. In that moment, it might have been nice if Darian had expressed a bias regarding my decision. It would have been comforting to know she cared, and it would have made choosing easier. Instead, she turned her attention to Nisias to add, Even you, Nisias, do not have that right. It is High's choice to make. And if she says no? Nisias asked. Let her look on the island with the eyes not veiled by echo before she decides. As I did, he challenged again. My daughter does not have your naivete, Darian pointed out. She knows how to use her power perfectly well. No one short of royal blood could use persuasion magics on her without her knowledge, and if they do, you are experienced enough to protect High, should you choose to accompany her. Darian, if you are plotting with them, at least let us hear it, Lillian said. I would like to know why we are being punished if the lady takes us to task for something you've said. Have I spoken a word of treason to you? Darian asked me and Nasias. No, I answered, considering her words. That's new, Lillian remarked. Hi, are you coming with us willingly, or do we need to carry you? Nasias grasped my hand. Araceli told me once that if I returned to the island, it would be as her heir. Is that still the case? Of course, Lillian answered. If I understand correctly, that gives me authority over everyone but Sharza and Araceli themselves, including you. Lillian nodded warily. We will follow our Empress's commands before yours, but yes, even Sharza's mercy would be held to your will unless she said otherwise. Then these are my terms. If Hai goes to Anmeek, I go with her, he said. Anyone who tries to use magic to manipulate either of us, or who tries to separate us without Hai's consent, I will consider to have acted against me, which, according to Anmeek's laws, gives me every right to execute them, or at least turn them over to you. Ale, Darian answered. As you wish, my lord. Her tone was so careful, so neutral, it betrayed her pleasure. My mother was concerned with assuring my freedom of choice, but she was not nearly as unbiased when it came to my prince. Chapter 23. I think the final chapter. Oh, goodness gracious. Yes. I thought about all the times I had seen Nasias on Anmeek. I had seen myself there, though I had never imagined that I could be the woman, the pure-blood falcon I had often seen by his side. Now I understood. Milady, the falcon did not kneel to me, but he bowed his head, his downcast eyes unable to conceal the terror within. Please forgive a foolish man his ill-conceived words. Not incorrect, simply ill-conceived. If Nasias had not been nearby, his crass comments about Quemac falcons would never have elicited any kind of stir. Do you apologize to me, I asked, or to my prince? Anmeek's magic would not let him lie, no matter how much the mongrel in question wished it would. The man looked at his prince and cringed. The Aonara was not in a forgiving mood. Perhaps too late, my mind made the crucial connections between the many sakri I had spun in my life. I knew what would follow if Nasias and I went to Anmeek now. How many times had I seen it, dreamed it, wished I could be that woman beside him? The royal house would welcome us with open arms. Sharza would personally greet me. My mother would watch proudly as I took the trials, and passed, of course. I would be given a rank, and at last I would be able to begin formal study of the Jaes Anmeek magic. Someone would be able to heal my wings, now that the cobra's taint was gone from me. Anyone powerful enough would be able to force change me and give me back the sky, and with it, everything I had ever wanted. I would dance at the Triple Arches once again. And Nasias, ah, my prince, he would be beside me. It would bother him at first when people were polite to me, only because I had both his favor and Sharza's, but I had faced such disdain all my life, and I would convince him to ignore it and let things be. My mother, my empress, and I would convince this lovely peregrine to accept many things. I cringed, and though I wanted Nasias' company very much, I said, "You don't have to do this for me." "I will return to Wyvern's court after you make your decision, no matter what you do," Nasias replied. "Anmeek isn't my world, and I don't want it. I just don't trust them to let you decide without coercion. If you want to go alone, that is your choice, but I hope you will let me go with you, if only to allow me the comfort of knowing that you are not forced to stay." "What if they try to force you to stay?" I asked, keeping the words from the ears and minds of the Empress's Mercy. Sharza's orders to Araceli to let me live my own life aren't likely to have changed, he replied. And if they have, I doubt your mother will fail to move Ekel and Mehey to get her way, as always. As always, indeed. But my mother wanted Nisias on the island. I wanted Nisias on the island, too, but it was a selfish desire. I could not take him without eventually losing him. In the end, Nisias was the only master of his fate. He would, or would not, go to the White City of his own volition. All I could hope to do was keep him from destroying himself for me. If I went, I would miss him. I would miss Wyvern's court, and even the Obsidian Guild. I would regret not seeing Saive Chardet grow into the beautiful queen I knew she would become, and I would miss the Cobra King to whom I had so recently offered my allegiance. Enough! One of the falcons snapped as I hesitated. There is no room for negotiation. Hai is one of the lady's subjects, and so is answerable to the lady's commands. As are we all, Darian answered, and everyone knew exactly what she meant. Why? Why did I delay? This world of snakes and birds was filled with such impossible, contrary fools. They struggled daily against the tides of fate, even when it would be so much wiser to give in. They burned with an incredible, desperate passion, which perhaps only Anamirak's followers could truly comprehend. Certainly there was no equivalent among the long-lived Shman-Meek. In the White City, there was enough beauty to make the most hardened heart weep. There were music that resonated in the soul and colors that the eye could hardly comprehend. Pure and crystalline and lovely, Anmeek was clear of the grime and sweat of Wyvern's court. Without intending to, I let out a small sound. Nisias put a hand on my arm, but his eyes stayed on the Mercy, as if he was trying to discover what they had done to me. I want to go home, I said softly. I want to speak to I almost said mother, and that was what I meant, but I was not thinking of the mother who was standing before me. My Empress, I mean. And if she chooses to see you, then you may, the impatient falcon replied, assuming we ever get back to the city. Darian asked me, You want to speak to her now? The Empress does not grant audiences at the whims of a... Darian half lifted her hand and, without even turning, tossed enough magic at her fellow guard to make him stumble to his knees. Closing his eyes, my mother drew a half-breath, and I could feel her power reaching out with a petition. To the magic of falcons, distance meant little. The many miles between Wyvern's court and the island of Anmeek were bridged by power, until suddenly my heart began to pound and I blinked back tears. I was still in Wyvern's court physically, but mentally I stood before my Empress. My lady, I whispered. Darian has informed me that I must speak to you. There was some wry amusement in her tone. Few people ever informed the White Lady of anything, much less told her she must do something. My lady, you gave so much to me when I was a child, even though I was born Quimac. You are the only child of my favorite companion, Darian, Sharza interrupted, her magic wrapping me almost like an embrace, gentle and comforting. Your father's blood was not your fault. How could I do less than twist fate herself to give you the chance to come home, whole and pure? The words differed a little from what she would have said to my mother, but I recognized the argument I had heard in my recent Sakri. She must have sensed my slight withdrawal, for she continued to make her point. It is little enough, she pointed out, compared to your machinations to save Wyvern's court. My lady, I thought about what my mother had told me when we had argued about Eliza. Sharza has more power than you and I combined, but the void frightens her. She fears drowning in its illusions, so she holds back. My mother's words had frightened me then, but I had not taken the time to understand the full implications of them. Now Sharza had chosen her words carefully, avoiding stating any fact that Anmeek's magic would reveal to be false. You never even looked to the future, did you? I had nearly drowned trying to save Wyvern's court. She had let me struggle on my own, and now she tried to take credit for all the incredible twists of fate and will that had led to this moment. You would have seen the dangers of Eliza's reign if you had only looked, but you never even tried. You just let me— I let you become queen, Sharza said. You let me tie myself to this realm, I said. Do you wish me home, my lady? You are one of us. Shman Mik Lahai, your place is here. Coldness seeped up my spine as she neglected to answer the question. Lady, you know I would do anything you wished. From my earliest memory, you were there, teaching me to dance. You were the one who caught me when I fell, and my wings were scoured from me. You were everything to me. You were the one who healed what you could. Please, my Empress, do you want me to return to you? She hesitated, and in that hesitation I heard the echo of all my last illusions shattering. You were the one, I thought, who held me, and you were the one who told me to rest. You were the one whose voice carried me into Echo. All you ever needed to say was that you wanted me, I said. That day under the arches, if you had only given me a word of encouragement, I would have stayed in this world. I could have used my magic to heal my wings before they set so twisted I would never have them again. I could have— My voice broke. But instead, you told me to rest. I would be there still if Nisias had not come for me. I waited, though I knew it was useless. Sharza did not continue to argue with me. I loved the White City, but there I was a mongrel, something to be tolerated. Even with pure magic, I would never be unblemished. I gathered myself together, drawing in a deep breath, rich with the sense of wintertime in Wyvern's court. I may finally be a falcon in your eyes, White Lady, but it is another land that holds my heart. I have no desire to return to Anmeek. I have a place here, I said. I wasn't exactly certain what that place was, but over the past few days I had started to discover a connection to this land that I had never had to Anmeek. Eliza did not trust me or like me. I made Sive nervous. The old Dient and Tuolithea, Zane and Danica, would probably never forgive me for what I had done to their daughter. And here, too, I would always be an outsider, a mixed-blood falcon. But here, for a while, I had been needed. Shaking with fear, I said, Lady Sharza, I respectfully request your permission to stay here, as a citizen of Wyvern's court, and not as one of your subjects. Such bold words! How could I have said them? How could I, who had been raised by the lady's hand, even imply that I would be released from her authority? Brazen, as a cobra cannot help but be. Somewhere in Sakri I had heard Sharza say those words about my father. Sharza sighed, and I struggled not to tremble in the face of her disappointment. Is this really what you want? She asked. My lady, if you tell me that you want me home, that you want me beside you, that I have ever been more loyal to you than a nuisance, then I will fly to your side in an instant. But you won't, because Anmeek will not let you lie that way. I saw the fear in your eyes when I was a child, and I began to spin Sakri of the Dasi. You do not want me in your empire. You tolerated me for years to try to win back my mother's favor, but you never wanted me. Please, grant me permission to leave now. Time stretched and seemed to slow as I waited for her reply. Permission granted. I had tears in my eyes as I pulled myself out of the trance and away from the last time I would ever see the woman who had raised me. I would probably love her all my life, as a child must love her mother. I certainly would not be able to hate her. I understood her fear too well to not forgive her. I don't understand, Darian said, standing beside where I had knelt with one hand pressed to the soil of Wyvern's court. You told her no? You said it would be her decision, Nisias pointed out. Sharza has honored... I never thought she would actually choose this, Darian replied. Hi, what do you have here? What place does any falcon have in a serpent and avian land? Darian, Nisias said, intervening, she made her decision. I pushed myself to my feet to face my mother. Looking into her Anmeek's silver eyes, I felt as if I was looking at a stranger. I have never been a falcon, not in your eyes, or the eyes of Anmeek, or my empress's, or even my own. I was always tainted. I'm cobra blood, Darian. You used to be, she asserted. You know I loved your father, but I hated the curse he left you with. You've rid yourself of that now. The curse he left me with was passion, I replied. And yes, it hurts, but it is mine. And the gift he left me with was Wyvern's court. You would really stay here, when Sharza has offered you Anmeek? My mother looked at me with confusion. Hi, all your life, I have struggled to give you this. All my life, you have struggled to give yourself this, I said. Struggled to win against the Empress. Haven't you? Darian, mother, you are Shmanmeek, and the white god has no patience for right and wrong, or sacrifice, only power. You're one of us. I shook my head. In the first Sakri I ever saw, I watched through Keisha's eyes as Sharza and Araceli ripped Anamirak's magic in half. I screamed with the cobra until my throat bled and I lost my voice for weeks. I should have known on that day that I would never be a falcon. Those around me knew my heritage by my ebony hair. I knew that it was held somewhere even deeper than magic, and that it wasn't on the White Island. It never had been. You will stay in this land without a serpent form? Darian asked, in a last desperate plea. Hi, I do not understand you. You had Wyvern's court in your hand, and you gave it up. You gave up your cobra form, and your position as Dient. Why else would you have done that, if not to come home? I gave up my magic to save my cousin's life, I said. I am more than my animal form. I am more than the magic the royal house of Anmeek deemed right for the Serpient to retain. I am more than feathers or scales. I am Kishara. Epilogue. Months later, I still sometimes woke in the night, coated in sweat, with my heart pounding. Wrapped in Nisias' arms, I would open my eyes and take a deep breath to assure myself that the past half-year really had happened. As a child, I had centered my entire life on my Empress's desires. I had sought nothing more than to please her, even when she had sent me into Ekel. Now I had cut my ties to Anmeek and was responsible for myself, for my own decisions, and for my own future. I had lost all guidance beyond myself, and had chosen this heartache of decision that made serpents and avians so brilliantly alive. Freedom. Though flavored by tears, that freedom was the sweetest thing I had ever known. After the weeks of chaos, from Eliza's abdication through Salem's resurrection, Wyvern's court did not return instantly to rest. Both royal houses came together to try to heal their shaken world, like parents holding a child through her night terrors. There was much shuddering and wailing, but eventually the court returned to its precious balance of two worlds dancing together in defiance of fate itself. I was honored to say I was among the dancers. On this night, I stood in the center of the Obsidian's camp, surrounded by all their guild, as well as some more unusual faces. The exiled falcons from the candle shop, and an uneasy-looking Scythe Chardet, who was standing beside her serpient companion. The only light came from a single lamp hanging on one of the nearest trees, and from the stars high above us. Vere stood before me, dressed in black, with a silver melos about his waist. "Your people have fared badly in all this," I said to him as we waited for the last guests to arrive. "First, Eliza made you promises, and then I did, and now neither of us is in a position to keep them. I am sorry." A rustling in the forest announced the arrival of 3 newcomers, Salem, his Naga Rosalind, and Nisias, who had guided them here. Nisias came to my side and wrapped me in his arms. Vere nodded a greeting and then continued our conversation. "You really think we have been mistreated by these events?" the White Viper asked. "Look around. The Cobra King and his mate are peaceful guests in our camp, traveling dancers and, albeit, nervous friends." He gestured at Scythe, who was now deep in conversation with Maya. "You say we've come out badly, but look around. You'll see Maevra, Kishara, Shmanmik, and the descendant of Alasdair standing together." "It's an exception," I replied. "Tomorrow, it is an exception that has never before occurred over the course of thousands of years. And tomorrow, even if the fighting begins again, they will remember." He smiled in a way that said that he knew his words were dangerously optimistic, but that he couldn't help it. "I never wanted to be a king, Hai," he assured me. "I accepted your suit because I felt it was time to reach out and make alliances, but I am pleased with the way things have turned out." His smile became a little more wistful as his gaze flickered from me to Nisias, but all he said was, "Are you ready?" I drew a long, deep breath, taking in all the scents of the wild forest, and raised my face to the night sky. "I'm ready." As I stepped onto the camp's center dais, I allowed myself once more to reach out to my lover and foe. Carefully, I asked Eccles' favor. There was only one thing I needed to know. It was a strange world, taken over by humanity, and stretching farther than anyone had imagined. Vast oceans, unknown continents, machines that did the work of men. What an incredible world it had become in the centuries since my own life, and within that world, 2 women stood face to face, garnet eyes looking deeply into gold. The cobra began to laugh, then hugged the hawk joyously. The Tuolithea was crying, but they were sweet tears. Both knelt beside a baby girl with white blonde hair and golden eyes. The next, Tuolithea's father, a white viper, one of the few remaining children of Obsidian, leaned nearby, watching trustingly as the Dient picked up the hawk viper child. None of them knew what their ancestors had gone through, what risks had been taken, or what sacrifices had been made to allow them to stand there unafraid. I pulled back from the vision as easily as I breathed, as I heard the drum beat again. Mentally, I sent a kiss to the familiar abyss, but the one it sent in return did not restrain me. My eyes still closed, I lifted myself onto my toes, arching my back and crossing my wrists above my head. I listened to my heart as it began to beat in time with the drummer's rhythm. The flute, when it began to play, felt like an extension of my own breath. My audience gasped as I unfurled wings the color of a cobra's scales, with a span of more than 15 feet. Because my magic was finally under control, Nisias and, grudgingly, Eliza had been able to work together to heal them. Now, as I prepared to dance, I spread them wide. Yes, I had finally embraced my Cobriana heritage, but who said snakes weren't meant to fly? My prayer is simple, my child, please do try to understand. I've given you freedom and left you with choices. Now you're at the beginning again. That brings this book series to a close. Thank you all so very much for hanging with me, and again with a whole nother lighting snafu for this read today. Okay, so with that being said, with us finishing up our book today, oh, thank you, Miss Deborah. With that book reading being done, I am actually going to go ahead and take next week off. Partially also because I want to see if I can find that book that I really want to read to you guys. So, next week I will take a break. So next week we will have off. So then that means, so two Mondays from now, we'll start up again with a brand new book. Look for an announcement of what the book is going to be on, like, I'll make a video about it or something. But, again, thank you guys so very much for joining me this evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed this journey as much as I have. I very much enjoyed finding this series again and reading it for you. Hopefully this inspires you guys to start reading again if you're not, or to branch out into a genre that maybe before this series you hadn't really been interested in. But with that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic night, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Stay hydrated and stay safe. Bye.